Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun. Take it on the...
Welcome back to Frontline Rejects. Before we get started today, we'd appreciate it if you could help us out by hitting that like and subscribe button and by dropping a comment in the comment section below. And if you'd like to reach out to us directly, send us an email at frontlinerejects@gmail.com. The bullet we're testing today is Remington's 140 grain pointed soft point core lock in 6.5 Creedmoor. This is a non-bonded, mechanically locked bullet, and it's been a staple of Remington's lineup for a very long time. This is the first time we've featured it on the channel, and we will be featuring it several more times, along with its newer version, the tipped core locked. Anyway, we're very excited to see how this classic standby performs, and we're sure you are as well. So let's get started. Remington's core locked has been a staple option for big game hunters since 1939. This particular bullet is the pointed soft point model, which is the classic profile that has adorned the core lock since its inception. Remington now offers an updated model called the tipped core lock, which utilizes a more modern profile and features a polymer tip, which we will be testing in the future. Back to today's test though, this is a cup and core bullet that uses a mechanical locking ring to maintain jacket and core integrity, similar to the Winchester PowerPoint or Hornady's Interlock. And looking at our overall image, we only had jacket and core separation at the 400-yard mark, which is pretty good. Estimated impact velocities were provided today using JBM ballistic software. And as we get into the 100-yard close-up, we can see classic mushrooming with the jacket peeling back on all sides fairly evenly. Jacket peeling is not as clean at 200 yards, but we've still got good pancaking from the lead with the jacket tearing back to below the flat base. At 300, we can see that bottom cannular and some uneven peeling of the jacket with expansion ending further up the shank. 400 is where we had some jacket core separation. The jacket jettisoned the lead with the jacket stopping at around the second water jug and the core pushing on to the fifth row. We round things out at 500 yards with expansion ending just above the top cannular. We see significantly less expansion as we drop down to just above 1700 feet per second. Taking a peek at our graphs, expansion steps down at each range fired as we shed velocity exactly as we'd expect it to. This gives us overall expansion of 2 2.02 times original size, which is pretty darn good. Looking at weight retention, we've got pretty even numbers as well, leading to low standard deviations and an average weight retention of 62.14%, which is right in line with what we'd expect from a cup and core bullet. At 500 yards, we drop down to 1.7 times original size, which is acceptable but borderline in my opinion for what I would want to see if I was planning on using this bullet at that range. The G1BC on this bullet is relatively low at 0.385, but that's to be expected on something originally produced in 1939. And ballistic coefficient doesn't matter too terribly much for the kind of hunting situations that this kind of bullet shines in, which brings us to our use case for this bullet. Now keep in mind that the use case I'm suggesting here corresponds to this specific bullet in this specific chambering. I do think that the Core-Lokt in other weights, diameters, and chamberings has a much wider arrays of potential uses, and I in no way think that this is a bad bullet. But in 6.5 Creedmoor with a muzzle velocity of right around 2,700 feet per second, I would personally use this bullet for strictly lighter game like deer or antelope out to around 400 yards. While this could work in a pinch at shorter ranges for smaller elk like spikes or cows, if I was going to hunt that classic game with a 6.5 Creed, I would personally select a different bullet like a Barnes LRX or TTSX with the intent of taking hard shoulder shots. In higher velocity chamberings like a 6.5 PRC or 264 Win Mag, I think this bullet could be very viable for elk. We were out shooting some new videos recently and I had a few of these bullets loaded up in 6.5 Weatherby RPM to do some barrel break-in. We had a few water jugs left over after conducting a different test, so I put one of these into some jugs at 400 and another at 500, and you'll see those recovered projectiles on the screen. They expanded well and held up beautifully. Of course, at those ranges, they had slowed down quite a bit for the muzzle velocity of just over 3,000 foot a second, so this isn't a great representation of how well they'd work at high velocity, but I think this is a good example of how well mechanical locking can work, which is something that occasionally gets forgotten about in the world of modern bonded bullets. I would not hesitate to take the 6.5 RPM on an elk hunt loaded with these, but due to the lower ballistic coefficient, I would limit myself to 400 yard shots and in. In closing, this bullet is a great option for people who choose to keep their shots at closer ranges and don't ever take shots at medium to long range, or shooters who are limited in their shot distance by the kind of vegetation they hunt in. It's a modestly priced, effective projectile that has taken vast numbers of game over the 80 plus years it's been in circulation. They still make it for a reason, and if this is your bullet of choice, sound off in the comments with what chambering you're running it in, grain weight, and what your experience with it has been like. As always, if you want to stay up to date with what we're doing, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, drop a like below, and we'll see you next time.